Tembisila FSP 5421. The last video I made was during the G20. That is the last video that I made and uploaded into the channel. Then we were talking payment systems. I remember we spoke of the RTGS. We spoke of the contingency reserve, the one of Sadc, the one of BRICS. We spoke of a few things. We spoke about a lot of issues affecting the development of BRICS and Sadc, and considering what the president has spoke about recently, when we realized that some countries are putting tariffs in their things, we started ensuring that we, I don't want to say explore, but or diversify. I don't want to say diversify, but we position ourselves strategically in the existing multilaterals and the groupings that we are, ensure that we have beautiful trade agreements and all that. So in consideration of the current Sadc and the developments thereof, it's very interesting considering the stance that's been taken. I see from yesterday's article that Zimbabwe is emerging into a chairmanship. We realize that Troika also is changing the defense, to be specific. So we're gonna in this series we're gonna talk about the defense Troika, the incoming chairmanship. We're gonna talk about the Sadc Troika. I don't know if Sadc uses the same logic as your BRICS and G20, but ordinarily, if you have a defense Troika, which was very interesting to see the perspective, you're also going to have the whole Sadc Troika, which is still definitely part of the Troika. So, yes, it's very interesting, but the main thing that we're going to focus on is the production. The production, how do we become effective and productive? I remember it was G20. It was G20 when we focused on the roads, making sure that the development that we have, the roads, the infrastructure, how do we make sure that we enhance, we put it to the optimal, so that we're able to have trade that becomes very easy amongst the countries. Same as when we look at production. Currently, I see the highlight being the production, considering that production or our markets have moved to the online platform, or is slowly transitioning, even though the online market is around 10% of the total market. But there is a transition that is happening, that is moving towards the AI or the fourth industrial revolution, where we're realizing that even the production itself, a few years back I would say that the transitioning of production into artificial intelligence or the fourth industrial revolution mechanisms or technologies is a problem to the reduction of employment. But recently I got to be involved in a project where I was transitioning a particular function exactly as it is from the physical to the online platform. One thing that you realize when you transition, there's a very comprehensive risk assessment or risk management and efficiency test that which you must put. So every function that was carried by a person entering a branch that would be on the road must be put in perspective. This person gets in, what does it do for them? The cost as an individual to the entity and business, how much does the cost reduce? Those are costs and functions that one considers. So when you take that particular function and put it on the online platform and saying that all that must be performed by an app or by a website, and you don't need to go to a particular branch or a physical place, that means you're saying that you have mitigated every possible risk that would be as per the new platform. You've ensured efficiency in the new function at which you are introducing. By efficiency, we mean that in every profit that you'd be making, whatever factor that was involved becomes on a better perspective. So it becomes introduced and becomes enhanced. So if you're going to talk employment and employees, my logic comes to this. That's why I'm saying that a few years back, I would say that the factors of production, I would say the production through your technologies on artificial intelligence or fourth industrial revolution would be a problem because of people would have less access to their jobs. But then it gives you a responsibility of saying now, if you're taking that particular employee that used to sit in the branch and get away now through your online systems and through your new mechanisms, you have mitigated the risk of ensuring that those functions are still carried by the platforms. So instead of whatever that was done by a person that was there, it is what's going to be done by a person sitting at home. That's the logic we're going to. Now, the person sitting where they are sitting and what roles must be carried by that particular function and what your system offers must be exactly what it was. So if it needed intervention of a person sitting there, it's still going to need an intervention of a person sitting where you are sitting at home. You could say that some of the functions are going to be reduced by a number, but what we're trying to get to is, if the production is increased, the if we're saying that the system is efficient and it's effective, therefore the production is going to be enhanced. If the production is enhanced, therefore that particular production needs to circulate in the market. That on its own still opens a gap in the market. That's number one. Number two, we would say that we're talking now with the efficiency in the production. So they'll move from the production to the distribution of the production. Even in the distribution of the production, is your product what it's supposed to be in the market? We goes to a question. Does it provide solutions? It goes back and creates a gap within the entity of saying that, are we offering products that are effective to the market? So now we as an entity, we have to go back and ensure that we create products that closes the gap. Now the new gap in the market will not be defined as maybe 50 people being in the branch or doing this or doing this and doing this. But the new gap in the market would be ensuring that the clients now that exist within the online platforms are catered for and efficiently as those that would be there. So that, but if you would look at the gap that would exist and the production that would be given, there would always be a loophole and there will always be a need for the human intervention thereof. So as I'm saying, a few years back I would say that the digitization or the moving of a particular sector or an industry into the online platform, but the reality remains. We're still going to need people to ensure that we close where the market, or that we introduce new functions that speaks to the new risks that arise as per the product, as per the new innovation that you introduce. So after I looked at this, I realized that we need the innovation. We need these concepts, these things to be applied in the market as soon as possible, and they should be as productive and profitable as soon as possible, so that we can start talking to those risks. One would say talking to those risks, but so that we can start being the sector that which we are supposed to be. Leave the risks at which we can talk about the risks that arise. We can talk about the risk that might arise pose. But then the minute we are not in a sector at which we are supposed to be at, whatever that we live in, it's a dream. Because of it's not the actual sector or the market that which you're supposed to be at. So all these functions, we use a cell phone. There's no balance in the system. You use a cell phone, you carry functions, but then some part in the sector, you still have people that are saturated in doing the functions as human functions, instead of making sure that you've positioned your market or positioned your entity and business or sector in a way at which the skills that which you develop and where you position your resources into skills development speak what you're going to need in the next 2 years or the next 3 years, and speaks the actual loopholes within the market. If you have to go and enhance skills for a grade 12 or grade 10 learned person to be able, in that particular thing, in that particular modus operandi, you'd be able to say that I'm developing a function for a grade 10 person or grade 9 person. That function might just require you to log in into the website, or you go into the app. You ensure that these 10 people, it might be filters that can be done through programming. It might be, but to a certain extent, you might need to communicate with these people, understand, use human discretion. Just for the fact of using human discretion, when you look at this person's response, what do you identify that's unique? You understand? So, to a certain point, a human discretion analysis will always be needed. So, make sure you create and cater for those that would close that particular loophole. As much as we can say artificial intelligence is the solution and would be able to create robots, but the human discretion in all these innovation is always needed. In the programming thereof, there's always a human discretion that is needed to ensure it positions whatever that has been programmed into the perspective of today's needs. So the intervention of human, it's I mean the changes in the identification of the problem or in the needs of the people arise as time goes, arise as needs arise. But yes, so I spoke a lot. I don't know why I was talking about production. I was talking about production going into artificial intelligence as soon as it can, so that we can start taking the skills. So we can start saying that skills that are necessary are these. So to start saying that you can do things through your phone, how many people, how much labor, how much people really need to be in the factory. That skill of being, are we going to compensate more and make sure we give priority to the labor that's going to be sitting in the factory? Are we going to say that the person sitting at home online compared to the person sitting in the factory, who do we pay more? When are we having those conversations? When are we becoming realistic so that we can start positioning the market and being realistic to an analysis of every function? So that's a very basic analysis thereof. So, but what did we talk about? We talk about production. We spoke about innovation. What else can we talk about in the coming industrial revolution? I think we are in a position where we can comfortably say that we are in the fourth industrial revolution, and everything that must be done must speak to the fourth industrial revolution and who we are in the fourth industrial revolution, and as a group, as an economy, I very much to say when you're talking the finance thereof. That's why I try and deviate. I very much to talk about the artificial intelligence, the programming, and all that. That's why I want to go to the production first. I have a tendency of trying to get to the production first. Make sure that the person who works with the production is happy. The person is really identified and positioned, so that the minute I start talking the finance thereof, I start talking the AI thereof, the technology thereof, then we've accommodated and factored the human intervention that is needed for the production thereof. I don't know if it would make sense. Now, if you're talking the finance thereof, Africa is developed. I remember the last time I was making my research, while I was talking of I was talking RTGS that time. So there I was talking RTGS and its relevance, I remember RTGS. I was also talking. That was Sadc. I was in Saku, the currency, the common. But in RTGS, I remember we spoke payment systems. Yeah, RTGS. We also went to the innovations that are erecting, that have been implemented. I remember there is these swiping machines, the innovations that send money, the innovations that have been growing. These innovations where you are able to send money amongst each other within the region, where these innovations, sometimes some of them have been introduced. Whilst they've been introduced, whilst you are in the program of, you find that they start lacking, or maybe their productivity or their efficiency or their utilization start being less than what they go. So you'll find that the next innovation that we should bring forth now must speak to the question of whether this, I remember, what is this? It's not Quasar, it's Quasar. I know there was a Quasar swiping, it's not a swiping machine also, these machines that they do. So that's from payment systems now, and being able to send money into these smaller machines that you find in shops. Being able to say that you take the economy within the customs, not customs union, within the Sadc region, making sure that through these machines that you find in shops, you swiping and all that, you are able to utilize and carry all these functions within the Sadc region. We're saying everyone now. That was talking to every individual, every participant in the economy. We're not yet to the sophisticated roles and whatsoever. We're just saying every participant in the economy. So we would say that every participant in the economy, you are able to do all those transactions and all that. And then you go to your roads. So in the finance, I have so much to talk about, and how much could be done and how much needs to be done. You go to your roads again and your infrastructure again. You sit with a gap. You sit where you're saying that how do we make sure that the infrastructure, the production infrastructure, trade agreements, your what would the Chief Justice say? I remember I was with the Chief Justice, and then when they introduced 30 years of the constitutional years, they spoke about what do you call it? It was not just treaties; it was investment treaties. The investment treaties that are applicable. How far are we with the investment treaties that we have introduced? What do they say about the current market? To whether the investment treaties and your individual multilateral and bilateral agreements that exist, do they speak the current status of the market, or rather of the region, of bilaterals and multilaterals? Does the current treaties and agreements, multilateral, bilateral, or binational, multinational, all those, I remember it's 6 of them, those definitions. And then you just make sure that they speak the reality, so that tomorrow, when you go utilize it, or when you go speak, it speaks the reality. And it took me a very long time to appreciate that a sentence, when it's constructed, it carries weight for every etymology or word that is used in a sentence. The construction of a sentence carries value, carries much and money in it. This is borrowed. This I'm taking from the insurance perspective. In an insurance perspective, when you price and say an insurance product is equals to 200 rands per month, or it's 400 rands per month, you're going to factor that I'm talking to a 57-year-old, if it's 57, or 50-year-old. I live in South Africa Northwest. You must be specific. I'm a woman, I am a man, I drive. All those questions if you are 57-year-old, the risk that you carry is unique. If you are 58 years old, the risk that you carry is unique. Now, by this I mean, when you go to those investment treaties, your bilateral agreements, your multilateral agreements, we must start approaching those from a perspective of saying that after I've compiled this insurance product, there must be a consumer who's going to pay 200 rands for this thing, and they're going to get 50,000 or 500,000 for this particular product. Once they get their 50,000 or 500,000 for this particular product, we expect it to be efficient for them. Now, what we mean by this, we're saying that our trade agreements, what our trade agreements must speak exactly the 200 rands. So if we make an agreement, the agreement must go speak the reality of the status quo, and it must speak the budget constraints. It must speak the developmental status. It must speak where you're trying to get, so that when we implement it, when we get to those swiping machines, when you're triggering those innovations that have been introduced, and we are trying to get them to work and be what they are, then the language that we use speaks exactly. So this construction, what it says, what be constructed and speak. So 10 BC, FSP 54211, authorized financial service provider under the Fires Act 37 of 2002. So what we mean is the innovation that we introduce must speak the reality. So from the product to the price of the product, from the infrastructure, the roads, to the user of the infrastructure. When we created a road and said a road is 2 trillion, or it's 2 billion rands, or it's 1 billion rands, what did we say the road is for? That is what did we say we're going to use the road for? Is it for a 57-year-old? The 57-year-old drives what car? And we're going to use it for how long? And what is the profitability or the effectiveness or of this road when we get to the price thereof? So from the price at which would be used, we would say what would be paid currently. We'd go sit down and say that how much are we going to pay currently for this road? 2 billion. For how long are we expecting to use this road? For 5 years. How much we're going to be using the road for 5 years? How much are we expecting in return for this road? So those are questions that we should. So I'm saying when we're talking finance, but that's very far. I think that would be a question for officials and what. But now I'm talking about the innovation now, the current innovation of finance. When that guy or that person did that machine, when they did that swiping machine that you use, that swiping machine, you can transfer money to a person who's at Zimbabwe, Zambia, or whatsoever. Just by going to a tax shop and say transfer, it transfers to there. It makes a token of 300 rands. They're able to transfer there. That particular innovation. How do we position it into the market? So by saying how do we position into the market, we're saying that where do we place it? How is it used? Where is it gonna be? Where is it gonna be needed and be in demand, so that it becomes what the benchmark of where we are? Because it might be there in the existence of certain concepts or innovations that are not there as yet. But this is the concept that has been practicalized. This concept still needs to first be known in the market before we could say we're going to introduce the next concept. That depends on the latter concept that is not actually moving within the market. So the concept that has been practicalized, or the technology that is already existing, we should find ways of introducing it to the people, because of one of the problems we're facing as Africa is or might be said to be, because I don't think when it comes to technology at this point in time, the use of cell phones, I mean, at this point in time, we're having a difficult time positioning or digitizing certain functions, and we are trying to lame down the language because of we saying that the market user, the user is the one that must understand this product. And when we're saying the user, we're saying that we want everyone who can have 100 rands or 50 rands to be that is a possible consumer, and to be able to press into that button of the app and take that product. So when we're talking these swiping machines and saying you are able to transfer 200, this one, this much, we've mitigated all the risks. We've made sure that this particular thing is so that is the logic and modus operandi in this thing. Is ensuring that the production, the innovation, the financial constraint speaks the reality of where we are, so that when we take the next step within leadership gaps, because obviously we're sitting in a position of which at Sadc, I think in our region, who do we have? That Mugabe is gone. Who else? It was Mugabe. When we're talking leadership gaps, when you're talking leadership gaps, you leave kingdoms. You're not talking kingdoms here. We're talking monarchs and monarchs. When you're talking democracy, you're talking democracy. Monarch is a monarch, democracy is democracy. What we mean is the continuity within the terms and the innovation and the solutions provided. Where was I going with this? Saying that the innovation that we produce or that we take and we do this must always speak the reality and the realisticness of what we need, because at the end of the day we'd want through leadership labs, we'd want through a change in leadership, through a change in term, but there's a continuity, like accountants would have their going concerns. I get your accountants would say that I work on going concern basis, same as you'd expect someone who's in innovation to say that I work on continuity basis. So everything that we do goes on continuity basis, so that we become like an accountant. When they say I have a clean audit, then we're saying that the innovation that we've made was fully functional and fully profitable and efficient. 10 BCL FSP 54211.